And now we are live.
Okay, awesome. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Uh, yeah, we are so excited for this session and welcome everyone. Today we have a very important guest in our midst. We have Tim. He's a very core member of the Ethereum protocol, and we're so excited for all the knowledge and exciting things that he has for us today. So, for those who are wondering, I know you've been wondering what is this series about. What are we about to talk about today, and all the stuff. So I'm going to bring on Coco. So she explained what the session is about. Let's have an idea why we're doing this. Why is it called Onchain Safari? Because I've seen a few sessions, right? I checked the youth band, a few sessions we held last year, and I think we held one a few weeks ago. So would like to know why. So hi, Coco.
Hi. So, as you guys know, my name is Coco. I lead operations of something called Eat Safari. It's the largest Ethereum gathering on the African continent. And what we're really excited about is not only just having Eat Safari happen in Kenya, but by having these online series as a way to get excited for all of the in real life events, but for us to be committed to the one thing that unites us together, which is a commitment to learning. And so these series are meant to be educational, a way for us to understand what's going on in the industry as a whole, to zoom out from the African perspective and get a sense of understanding what's top of mind in terms of Ethereum right now and Ethereum in the future. So thank you so much, Tim, for agreeing to be on this session. I know trying to coordinate with busy travel schedules is always challenging, but I really appreciate your time. And I think the most exciting part is that, seeing from afar, I know you've came to Kenya last year, but one of the reasons why we have these sessions in this way is that coming all the way to the continent is really hard, but this is a way to actually see into the lives of the developers that are actually wanting to contribute to the core protocol. So thank you so much for being on the session, Tim. I'll let you introduce yourself, and then we'll also let Decentra Code and Web3 Nova say hello.
Yeah. Well, yeah, first, thank you so much for having me. And yeah, agreed. Like it was awesome that we could bring all the core devs to Kenya last year, but obviously we can't be everywhere all the time. So very glad that there's events like this and opportunities like this to chat. So yeah, again, my name is Timeko. I work at the Ethereum Foundation. The main thing I do there is coordinate development of the Ethereum protocol. So this involves many different teams from around the world that want to come together and contribute to this. And I've been doing this since 2021. Prior to this, I worked on one of the actual client implementations for Ethereum at Consensus. Um, and before that, I was just reading about Ethereum on Reddit and interested about it. And that's kind of what got me down the rabbit hole.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Thank you so much, Tim. So, as you can see, we have the Central Code and Web3 Nova here. So, let's hear from the Central Code. We're so excited. Hello, the Central Code. Can you hear me?
I think you're muted.
Yes.
Um,
Awesome.
my name is Kakosa, and yeah, we're at Central Code. So we're a builder focused team that started way back in 2024 as builders, and we did a lot of educating between ourselves online. And this year we started our first resident bootcamp, which took 4 months. And yeah, we continue to build products. We've also shipped and been part of the base batches. And yeah, we really look very closely to what's going on in Ethereum to bring opportunities back to the builders that are in our community and it's been great so far this year. And yeah, we are excited. We are live in Kampala, Uganda, and yeah, thank you for really bring us here together. Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Thank you so much, guys. We are happy to have you all here, and we can sense the level of anticipation and level of connection that you have. So, thank you so much for being here, all of you. Hi, Web3 Nova. Hello, you are muted.
I
Awesome.
yeah. So thank you very much, Vic, and Kuku, the central code. So I'm Bernard. I'm the founder of Web3 Nova, and we started our fiscal cohort this year. Last year we had an online, and we had some 3 weeks, 2 weeks boot camp before I decided that let's go into fiscal building where builders will come over the space of 4 months and learn and be able to build products. So we are rounding up our cohorts, and in this cohort, we've been able to build two outstanding products. One which has performed transactions of about $6,000 on the blockchain, and another one which has 20 users already on Webcast. So we have been building, and we are looking forward to continue building, and we are expecting our next cohort in the next coming months, and that's what we've been doing, and that's what we want to continue doing for a very long time, because that's the dream, to bring builders on chain and to bring them to build valuable and day-to-day activities applications, not applications that users just build for grant or for winning sake, but applications that everyone will be able to use on a day-to-day activity and to impact everyone's life in the minimal way it's good. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I would like to mention that it's truly amazing that we have these communities here today, and we also have all of you guys watching us online with the live stream. It's so amazing. This is an amazing initiative, Coco. And at the beginning, Coco was mentioning that this is done this way because we want to bring it down to the community level, right? It's very very important. This initiative. I've met Bernard in person. He is an amazing person, and this initiative is so amazing. People do not realize how hard it is to bring people together physically. It's maybe easy to bring people together online, but physical, no, it's not easy. I've experienced it firsthand. It's not easy. So kudos everyone. I know it's not easy to bring all of you like here in one location. It's not easy, but thank you so much, everyone, for being here. And we are so happy. The power of community is seen in each and every one of you guys. Thank you. All right. So, yes, before I forget, let me introduce myself as well. My name is Vikesh. I'm a software developer. I'm also a DevRel, and I love doing dev things. Anything that pertains dev development, you see me there, definitely. And I've met team a couple of times. Mostly during the sessions we had with women in Ethereum protocol. It was amazing. He is an amazing soul with a lot of knowledge. He has loads of knowledge to give to us today. And if you have anyone that would benefit from this session, do well to invite them. Send the live stream link to them. I think I see a few people watching us from YouTube, so you can do that. And I think we had some um, Luma registration, so I'm sure Coco has sent the link to each and every one of you. Thank you so much. So we are going to be kicking off now. And, let me just, yeah, Coco, we're kicking off, right? The questions and everything. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. All right. So let me formally introduce Tim so you understand. So, Tim is the protocol lead at Ethereum Foundation, and he's an influential figure, right? He's one of those that help shape Ethereum's future. He's one of those that help make Ethereum what it is today, right? He's one of the core teams of Ethereum, which is an amazing thing. Anything EIPs, anything dev calls, core dev teams, everything, you're definitely going to see Tim as one of those guys. And if you have any questions, technical, non-technical, I would also like to say that the session is not only for those that's technical. Even if you're not technical, right, you definitely benefit from what we're about to say here today. So, any of your friends do not have to be technical. Just bring them on, bring them on. All right. So, thank you so much, team, again for being here. So we know that you help coordinate the Ethereum core protocol meetings because I've seen the core dev meetings and all that, and I would like you to give us a sense of what that is about. Because we know in these meetings, these are where decisions are being made. These are where decisions about the protocol. During the Daikon upgrade, there were a lot of calls around it, a lot of meetings, So just give us an idea of like what those calls are about.
Sure. So Ethereum is like an open protocol, right? Anyone can come and contribute to it. So there's no kind of restrictions. And the way that this works in practice is that the rules of the Ethereum protocols are written as like specifications. So you can think of this as like an instruction manual for how Ethereum works. And we have Python specifications, but it doesn't really matter. We used to have a one that was using like a formal math notation. So it's more about just like having a list of like what are the rules of the protocols. And then from the specification, teams build production implementation of the Ethereum software. The best analogy to this outside of crypto is probably like a web browser, right? Like if you use Safari or Chrome or some other browser, you can go to a website, and if you go to ethereum.org on Safari or on Chrome, it shows you the same website, but they work a bit differently. And there's things you can do on Safari and not Chrome, and vice versa. And so this kind of a good analogy for how Ethereum clients are set up. So we have all these different implementations. They want to come together and they want to talk about like how should we change the protocols? Like what are things we should do to make it easier for users, make it easier for developers, make the protocol more secure. And the main venue for these discussions is what we call these all core devs calls. And this is kind of the core of my job is I run part of those calls where everyone's going to come in and debates what changes should be made to the protocol. So for the most part, the attendees are these client developers who like spend all of their time working on this. But also there's a lot of people who come because they want like a feature in the Ethereum protocol, right? Like they want to propose a specific change. So they might not maintain a full implementation themselves. And, they might be like a smart contract developer. And, if they had this additional feature in Ethereum, it would make their life easier and ideally the life of other developers in the ecosystem easier. And so a big part of these calls is just kind of going through all these proposals from the community, from the developers themselves, from researchers, figuring out like, okay, what's the most important thing to do? Is it safe? Is it secure? What are the issues with it? And then once we've agreed to it, a lot of it is just like going into the weeds of, okay, we want to do this feature and there's these issues with it, or there's these things we need to address. So, a very significant part of the time is just spent like testing and reviewing and making sure that the thing we decided to do actually gets done in a secure way that we're super confident when it goes live on the network.
That's lovely. That's lovely. And who are those that can join the call? Is it open to everyone?
Yeah, anyone can join. So the calls happen on Zoom, but we also stream them to YouTube and Twitter if you just want to like listen in. So most of the people that like participate in the calls are usually about 100-ish, maybe up to 200 people is like the most, like the biggest one. But it's usually about 100-ish people, I'd say, on the Zoom call. And then of that, there's like not everyone just participates and discuss, but it is fairly open. And obviously, if people start spamming or just being off topic, then I'll kick them out. But we do want to keep it somewhat open so anyone can come and put something on the agenda and raise a concern. Yeah.
Okay, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Tim. And I'm seeing questions in the chat. So if you have questions, you can drop them in the chat for the Central Code and Web3 Nova. I know there are sometimes you have some questions and you don't want them to leave your head at the moment, so you can just drop them in the chat and we'll definitely attend to them. But for now, I just want to go through some of the questions I have for Tim. So if you have some questions you would like to drop in the chat, do well to do that, and everyone that's watching. Okay, next question. So we hear a lot about core protocol, like someone being a core protocol developer, right? So what does a core protocol developer do? Yeah.
Yeah, the average core protocol developer works on one of these implementations, usually specializing in part of it. So like, you know, some there's like the Geth implementation, there's REST, there's Aragon, Teku, Prism, whatnot. So like an average person working at say Prism or Nethermind, they're just like a software engineer, and I don't know, they might work on like the database, or they might work on syncing, or they might work on like implementing EITs. And before I worked at the EF and did this like coordination work, I was a product manager on one of these implementations. And maybe the thing that surprised me the most is like how small of a part of the work implementing the new features was. Like I expected when I came in with like, 80% of the work would be like these like core protocol changes and 20% would be like maintenance or whatever, but it's probably much closer to 50-50, if not even higher on the like non-core protocol changes, where a lot of the work is just like database optimization or peer-to-peer network engineering, and things like that. So in a way, it's like very traditional to like software development in other domains, more so than say writing Solidity and building applications on Ethereum. Like building apps on Ethereum feels very different than like building apps on the web. Whereas like being like a database engineer on Ethereum client is probably somewhat similar to being like a database engineer in another context. Um, for better or for worse, so it means like we can get like very good people to come in who don't necessarily have a ton of context about Ethereum, and they can be very productive. But I think also the challenge is it's the intuitions you have building the core protocol software are different than the intuitions you need to build good applications on Ethereum.
I hear you. I hear you. And I also like the fact that there are different paths to the protocol. So
Yeah.
it's not like one person is doing the whole job. So they are like divided into teams. So
Yes.
while doing my research, I also found out that a team working on networks may not know what's happening on the consensus, right? It's very, very much possible. So
Yeah.
just divided into parts and everybody is working and syncing, and it's so amazing how the protocol works. It's awesome. It's great. Okay, so we have a question here where said seems the Ethereum JS implementation is depreciated. Um, is that correct?
It is correct. Yeah. Yeah. So we
Okay.
have implementations in a bunch of other languages. There's other JavaScript libraries. Parts of the JavaScript implementation will not be deprecated, but the core client itself is deprecated. Yes.
Oh, okay. Too bad for those that really liked it. All right, so there's a question here from the Central Code. So they want to know, sorry, we know that running a node provides security to the protocol even without staking. Is there any reward to such node runner?
Short answer is no. Yeah. So
Mm.
when you run a node, basically the thing that you're doing, if you're not staking, is you are sharing your view of the protocol with the rest of the network, and that provides security. Um, it provides security to you as well as a user. Basically, like you can know that like you're interacting with the network, and you what you think should be true is true. But the only nodes that are rewarded in the protocol are the staking nodes.
Yes, yes. And it would not be fair to those that are staking because, yeah, so you have to stake to to be able to do that.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I actually have a question, Tim. What are
Yeah.
some of the challenges around prioritization of which features get implemented versus which get
right.
depreciated,
Yeah.
um, especially as like the front facing kind of
Yeah.
decision?
It's super hard. So like in times, there's sometimes when everybody agrees, and it's like a combination of just the thing is ready and everyone realizes it's important, and so it becomes quite easy to align on it. So the most obvious case we have here is like the merge, right? Like where it was clear we wanted to do this. We'd been prototyping it for many years, and it kind of got to a spot where it was ready to become like the main thing we would do next. And it'd been part of like Ethereum's roadmap, since Ethereum basically launched. So there wasn't much question around whether or not we should move to proof of stake. It was always a question of when and how. So when we had like a good credible way, then everyone just aligned and did that. And it was a lot of work. It was very hard technical work, but it was also like very little conversations about should we do it or not. Um, and then it becomes much harder if you're like in the opposite case. If like a bunch of things are ready or like in similar stages of readiness, and it's not clear, there's not like a shared sense of like this is the most important thing now. And then we end up spending months effectively debating the trade-offs. And one thing we're starting to do with this upcoming fork, that we're planning now, is trying to separate like what's the biggest feature of the fork from what's like the smaller ones. And
Mm,
historically, we've always done that a bit implicitly. And the reason is just like if you're doing like one big change and it touches a bunch of parts of the protocol, doing another big change at the same time is really hard because they kind of interact and it makes the testing more complicated and all of that. So historically, we've been best if we could just say like, okay, this is like the one big change, and an analogy I've used like this is almost like a music festival with like headliners. So if you organize a music festival and there's like a headliner artist and the artist cancels, then you might reschedule your festival, right? But if there's like 10 other musicians and number seven cancels, then you'll just still have the festival because like the headliner is there. So I think this is like it's like a good way of thinking about the process where we should first agree like, okay, what is like the headliner, what's the most important thing we're going to do, and we're kind of going to do this no matter what, right? Like because we if we remove this from the upgrade, then the upgrade would be kind of useless or trivial. And then once we've got that settled, we can figure out like, okay, what are like some small other additions we want to do alongside it, and to the extent they don't disrupt like this main feature or this headliner, we can package them in, and then maybe we find that like one of the small features has an issue, so we just remove it and we cancel it. And that's roughly how the process works. It's like trying to debate like, okay, what's the headliner? This is what we're going to be doing in the next month or two, for the upcoming upgrade. And once we've got that settled, then we'll know like, okay, what else do we have capacity for?
mm. Yeah, that's a really good analogy. I like that because you can really identify. Or I like the fact that you shared that implicitly you were always doing that, but now it's a more intentional approach, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, who supports you in kind of designing these systems around decision making?
Great question. I run the calls focus on the proof of or the execution layer side of the chain. There's someone else, Alex, who runs the calls focus on a consensus layer. And so we spend a lot of time talking because we basically do the same thing. Um, and so I'm probably one of the people who spends the most time thinking about this. And then I will share my ideas and get feedback by like other facilitators, by like the top like engineers, the researchers, they're just people in the ecosystem as well. So like I don't know if there's like a single person that supports me, but I definitely get a lot of like different perspectives and try to synthesize them and think through them. So yeah, and maybe like one part that's different is like a lot of people have opinions about this process or things they think we should improve, but I'm basically paid full time to work on it, which is not true of most people. So I do feel like it's kind of on me to then go and flesh out these proposals or like on the process because like yeah, you might have some opinions on it and whatnot, but you have other priorities. Whereas this is pretty much my number one priority.
Yeah, interesting. And the reason I ask that question is because to me, this is a design challenge. It's not like
Yeah. Oh yeah,
related to
100%.
Ethereum. It's not related to tech. It's just it's a design and human
Yeah,
behavior.
yeah, and like yeah, there's definitely the fact that like Ethereum has a lot of very unique properties about it that's unique to consider. But I agree, you can abstract a lot of the technicals, right? Like the process doesn't care about like how you know things are implemented super low in the stack, um, but it's very different from other environments. So like, a lot of the Ethereum processes are inspired by the IETF, which is the Internet Engineering Task Force, and they developed a lot of the standards for the internet. And I think it's a good example of like it mostly works, but there's some things about Ethereum that are quite different. Like, internet standards are not literally money. Like it's kind of wild when you think about it, but like Ethereum is literally like money. And someone made this joke to me, like a couple months ago. They were like, if the IETF does a bad job, like your fridge can't connect to your router or something. So, it's like it's not great, but it's if Ethereum does a bad job, it's like everything that's built on the chain can crash. And so there's like a, I don't know, like a magnitude of difference. And this is why like yeah, you even though it's like a coordination problem or a design problem, you do have to like look at the specifics and kind of take the things that are closest from other domains and figure out how to incorporate them. Because there's no just like one size fits all
Mhm.
solution that we can use.
Yeah, that's really cool. I don't think I quite understood the joke, but I understand
Yeah,
the
yeah.
outcome. Um, so
Okay.
I have selfishly, right? I have a question because I spend a lot of time designing challenges, specifically for Eat Safari. We have a hackathon, and some of the things that I think about are how do you design something that's most relevant for what's going on in Ethereum currently, but also solving some of Africa's like core challenges. And so my question to you is, if you were to design a hackathon challenge right now, given everything that you know about Ethereum, what do you think is most relevant?
For like a 2-day hackathon.
Yes, right now it's actually going to be a virtual hackathon. You'll have a lot more time to build than just two
Okay.
days. Yeah.
And what type of participants are coming in? Like, what's their background?
So, just like Web3 Nova and Decentracode, they have
Okay.
a lot of experience in building. And I think, from my understanding of like the past couple years working in the community, a lot of the times it's like lacking the ideas, right?
Yeah.
So there's like a desire to build,
Yeah.
but not really clarity on like what it is to build or like what's
Yeah.
most relevant to
Right.
build. Yeah.
I think there's two approaches you can take that are potentially valuable. But so one of them is like applying what exists on chain to your local context, right? Like, and I think this is especially true in like say a lot of African countries where just like some infrastructure that you take for granted in like the US or Europe or whatever just like doesn't exist and doesn't work there. And Ethereum can actually be like a substitute for that and being like, okay, there's this thing that like, is kind of broken here and we could actually fix through just like better automation and coordination and transparency. And I cannot tell you what those things are because I'm obviously not from Africa and I don't have like a first-hand experience there. But it's I think it's something where like um, you know if you're from those regions, then you just have like context and insights that other people don't, and that's like a very valuable thing to leverage. And if you kind of like understand what Ethereum gives you, what's like valuable about it, what are like its properties, and you understand like your problems or your like the things you could address, then I I feel that's like super valuable. I think the other part of this, though, I would say is almost the exact opposite, where um, Ethereum is open and global and permissionless, and Ethereum doesn't care if you're like a 16 years old from Kampala or a like 40-year-old from San Francisco. Like the chain doesn't know, doesn't care. So I think this is the other part too, where like um, if you just look at this chain as like an abstract thing and look at like, okay, this is like a digital financial systems, what are pieces that are missing and that would be valuable? Um, you don't need anything else beyond that, right? Like, and one kind of wild example for this is like, I think Uniswap, right? Like Uniswap was just like an idea in a Vitalik blog post, and the guy who built it, Hayden, like just took it and did not know much about Ethereum or coding or finance, and he kind of like thought through this idea and implemented it and deployed it. And Uniswap today is also far more complex than the version one that they launched, but the version one was relatively simple. Um, so I think this is the other part too, is like if you're able to be at like the frontier of knowledge and you're able to see like, okay, this is like what's now possible on the tech, and these are the bits that no one has built. Um, it is pretty insane how like it doesn't really matter where you are. Like imagine you build like a new DeFi protocol today, like you can get like $1 billion deposited in it on Ethereum, like and it's very different than say if you're based in like again Kampala or somewhere else. Like if you want to get like $1 billion of like customer revenue on like your SaaS product, right? Like there's like a way in which just like capital and like attention on Ethereum is actually globally distributed. So that would be the other part I would lean into. And I think it really depends on like who you are and your background and your personality and your interests. But it does feel promising to either go like very deep into local issues that like, you know, that people don't quite understand, but also then to just go to their like frontier and be like, okay, this part of the stack is missing. And you can just go and build it and yeah, so this neither of those are like very specific ideas, but I think they're the two directions worth exploring if you have time.
Amazing. Yeah. Thank you so much for that. I don't want to give away the challenges already, but some of what you said really resonates with what I've been brainstorming already. And this actually ties into what we shared last week's session. And so we had Uttam, who is the lead developer relations at Alchemy, give us a talk, and the question that he had for you. So I asked him, our next guest is Tim, and the question he had for you is, what do you think about Ethereum currently versus how Ethereum is going to be institutionalized? And I think you touched on that by saying, it's very different if you are, the 16-year-old that's in Kampala
Yeah.
versus the, based in San Francisco. And so, yeah, want to get your
Yeah.
insight on that. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think there's a lot to unpack here. Like I think when we say institutionalized, there's like a lot of assumptions in this. So one is just like institutions using the chain. And I think this is great. But again, it's like, the chain doesn't care if you're like BlackRock or if it's me sending a transaction, right? Like they don't get priority over this. Um, I think the thing we do want to maintain though, as Ethereum gets institutionalized, is like open access to these systems. And and like we can't prevent again, BlackRock or some other TradFi company can go on Ethereum and they can create like a walled garden, and that's fine. Like they can use the chain for this. I think what we need to do as like an ecosystem though is make the open and interconnected part of Ethereum so appealing for them that they're like, wow, we can go and create this walled garden, but then we're not going to be able to plug in all of DeFi. We're going to lose access to all these users. We're not going to be able to like interact with that, and then kind of not like pressure them to like be open, but just make them want it, and then they will do it. And I think people talked a lot about stablecoins recently, and I think this is like a big part of why. It's because stablecoins are kind of this tool that we've put on chain that enables like dollars to travel around the world in like a pretty seamless and permissionless way, and you can use your stablecoins to go and like whatever, do some TradFi thing and be in like this regulated walled garden. But you can also go and buy some random NFT or use it as collateral and borrow some tokens against it. And I think that's a really important part to preserve. But we have to preserve it by like building a really valuable open ecosystem, and not by like asking people to not build walled gardens on Ethereum, because yeah, like we can't we can't control what people do on Ethereum, right? Like, so we just have to like build what we think are the best versions of things, and have that appeal to people.
Hmm. How do you on the protocol side prepare for this?
Um, I think one big change, maybe that's like, I don't know if it's so big of a change, but one change is that I think we need to get better at making a lot of the processes more explicit. Where in the past, I think we got a lot of value from not having too formal of processes, because it allowed us to move a bit quicker, and also to not like um, have those processes be like captured by any special interests. But I think now, if like the special interests are here anyways, we should just be clear like what the rules of engagement are, and how to respect that, so that it doesn't have to be me, like to the extent I like have you know values aligned with Ethereum or whatnot, like um, it shouldn't be me as like a human defending kind of the network. Like, we should be able to design like whatever processes for engaging in a way that does this, if basically anyone's able, if anyone fills in. And the challenge with this is like the extreme version of this is like a full bureaucracy, and those just tend to be quite slow, and overly like have too much process. So we need to find the sweet spot where we we can assume like we probably have like good people involved in the process, um, and not be like completely bureaucratic. But we also can't just assume like, oh, it's going to be like, I don't know, Vitalik coming and telling us every time what's like the right or wrong thing, right? Like, we need to have something that's a bit more robust than that, and a bit more legible, I think, to the world. So yeah, that's been like a change, where like trying to make things more explicit.
Hmm. Kind of like what you shared earlier about the prioritization.
Yeah, exactly. Like, yeah, that's one good example. So yeah.
Hmm. Nice. I know that I've been interrupting with all of my questions just
No,
because of my,
thanks.
my curiosity, but I know Vikish had a lot of questions prepared for you, so I want to give the stage to her. And then I will also probably want to shift gears as well. I want to learn a little bit more about like what brought you into Ethereum, and like what makes you stay, right? Yeah, and I think about these things because we're about to celebrate 10 years of Ethereum on July 30th, which is really exciting. And so, how many of those 10 years were you a part of it, right?
Yeah.
Uh, yeah.
Yeah. So funny enough, the thing that got me into Ethereum was Bitcoin. So I learned about Bitcoin before I learned about Ethereum, through a friend. Um, and then I learned about Ethereum um, through this project called the DAO, in 2016, was it? And the idea was that the DAO would be like a VC fund on chain. So it's like people would like put in some money, and then in exchange for the money, you would get a token, and then the token would allow you to vote on like which investments the VC fund made. Um, and that sounded super interesting. So it was like different than Bitcoin, right? Like, I kind of knew that Ethereum was a thing before, but that was the first time I was like, oh, okay, you can like do something different on Ethereum than you can on Bitcoin. So I bought some Ether. I put it in this thing called the DAO. I got my tokens. And literally the day after, the DAO got hacked and someone started stealing all the money. And so the and at the time, about 15% of all the ETH was in the DAO. And to put this in perspective today, this is more than all of the L2s and the wrapped ETH contract. So it was a lot. So it's like, I don't know, a week after getting into this, like realizing like, okay, wow, this thing is getting hacked. And then after that, they found a way to like stop the hack, but it would require a emergency upgrade to Ethereum. Um, and I had no idea what any of this meant at the time, so it was just kind of I was like reading all these random threads and trying to understand what was going on and if I'd lost all my money. And then you had to like do all these weird things, like split your coins so they wouldn't get like stolen on the other version of the chain. Um, so did all that. And after that, I guess for a while, I wasn't sure. I was like, okay, we have Bitcoin, we have Ethereum. That's like Bitcoin with smart contracts, but then smart contracts, if they get hacked and they don't work, like maybe it's just a bad idea. So for like a few months, I didn't think about it too much. And then in late 2016, early 2017, again, you start seeing like way more applications come on Ethereum. And in like the summer of 2017, um, there was like this ICO summer, and it literally crashed Ethereum. Like it was really hard to use because there was so much demand. And that's kind of what got me to wanting to work on it, where I thought, like, maybe all the projects now are going to fail again, like the DAO, but it's clear people want to use Ethereum. And even if, like, the DAO failed and this entire second batch of project failed, like, there'll be something else in the future. And the protocol itself just felt like it was very hard to use. So I wanted to work on the protocol itself to try and, like, make that better. Um, there just weren't no jobs doing this. So I spent basically like a year uh, learning about it as a hobbyist on the side, trying to find like a job somewhere, and getting rejected in a bunch of places. And eventually I just got very fortunate that Consensus started a team around protocol, and they were hiring a project manager for it. So I managed to get hired there at Consensus. Um, and then for me, I think that was like a very big difference, where it goes from like you're really excited about this thing and you're like working on it on nights and weekends to like now it was my job to work on this thing. So it feels like from there it's been like much easier to just go really deep and focus on that. It was definitely like a couple years of like being a hobbyist, trying to figure out like what parts that I actually want to work on. And then even once I found that out, like finding the right role and the right opportunity, and spending a bunch of time reading and interviewing and doing all these tutorials. Um, and it took yeah, it definitely took some time, but then once I found the right spot in the ecosystem, it was very easy to just build.
You're on mute, Pikish.
That's very, very interesting. Thank you so much, Tim. This learned a lot. It's such a journey how we got here. It's amazing. So, during when you were answering Coco's questions, you've actually touched a bit on some of the questions I have. So I think we'll just take a look at the questions in the chat, because I can sense the anticipation in everyone. They really want to get answers to their questions. So there's a question that's asking how core devs are compensated. So it'd be nice if you can throw more light into that.
Yeah, I mean, core devs generally just work for like companies, right? Like, like Prism is part of Off-Chain Labs, and some are at the Ethereum Foundation, and some are at Consensus, and some are at Nethermind. So like, it's just like a job, right? Like, so you get hired. You don't get hired as like a general core dev, right? You get hired to work on like the Nethermind team, or on the Lighthouse team, or on the Nimbus team. So that's kind of how you get compensated. The, and then I'll say, like, maybe in addition to that, one thing we do at the EF is we have this program called the Ethereum Protocol Fellowship, where we try to bring in
Okay.
people. We give them small grants. Some people even do it for free on like their own time. If oh, I'm so sorry. I need to come back. I'll be back in a second.
Okay.
No worries. I can't imagine. There's probably something going on. Anyways, I think the so there's a couple of things that I want to talk about. So first of all is I can share more about EPF. There's also many of these resources already available. For me, I'm most interested in thinking about like what is the future look like, right? Because you have
Yeah.
someone who's constantly thinking about the future, and so uh, I don't know. I feel like I should do a general knowledge of Ethereum session, so then we're not wasting time talking about EPF. But EPF is a really good fellowship, even
I can,
because you know about
I
it,
can
right?
share. Oh yeah, definitely. I applied for the last one. It was very interesting.
Yeah.
So I can share. I have a link to the EPF studies. So that was what it was shared to us during the Women in Interim Protocol Fellowship.
Yeah.
So I can share. Um, how do I get it to the chats? I can just send it to.
It's in the comments.
Okay, I'll have to join the chats, but yeah, I think it's. Let me just call it. It's
Oh,
epf.wiki. Yeah, very,
yeah.
very easy. You can just
I
get it.
actually just shared it right now.
Yeah.
Um, something that I've been thinking a lot about is I think the question always is, how do African developers, the builders, you guys in the room, get opportunities? And I think Tim mentioned a little part of it, which is he's like, oh, I got really lucky, and I think that it's partly true, but partly not true. The part that's true is that like luck is a combination of like preparation, uh, and then an opportunity, and so a lot of these things is like you need to go down the rabbit hole and not stop going down the rabbit hole until you find what it is that you want to be your niche, right? And so I think Vikish, humbly speaking, like you are a perfect example of someone who does this. You like go down the rabbit hole. You're always active in the Women in Ethereum protocol, and you'll you know those are the people that get opportunities, right? And then I think generally speaking that there's an imbalance of the number of opportunities available, and the number of developers or like number of builders that there are, right?
Mm,
And the opportunities actually lie mainly in building your own project, right? And it kind of ties into the hackathon challenge that Tim was mentioning earlier, which is it's like the real world. Like no one will know more about Kampala more than you, Kukuza, right? And Decentral Code team, and no one
definitely.
will know more about your local context more than you
And
do.
you.
And so it's about equipping yourself technically on one side. And then on the other side, it's about kind of recognizing where your expertise is.
Mm,
And, the EPF fellowship, the Women in Ethereum protocol. Last week we had Alchemy, so there was Alchemy University. I don't think that there's an excuse. Like the moment you get online, the moment we have internet access, there's ample amount of education. But
yeah.
discipline is their discipline. Actually last year during Eat Safari, the entire hackathon, the question that was on displayed on the board was uh, uh, I forget the exact wording, but it's like, what are you willing to sacrifice in order to have a good project? Can you
Hmm.
guys answer that for me? Like, what are you willing to sacrifice in
That's it.
order to make sure that you build a good project? And
Hmm.
the reality is that there's a lot of distractions. There's a lot of things that you could do. Real life also kicks in, and yeah, and based on that, oh, sorry, one second. Yeah, so I think that's a question that I have for you guys. What are you willing to sacrifice in order to build something real? I
Hmm.
mean, by visiting the Decenter Code community, I know what they're willing to sacrifice. So yeah. Oh, yay, I'm back.
It's very important. And one thing I would like to mention is that yeah, the opportunities are there, but it depends on if you're ready for them. So you need to be able to position yourself and get yourself ready for that opportunity, because definitely there are a lot of opportunities in the interim all over the ecosystem, but it just depends on if you're ready to actually actualize and activate those opportunities for yourself, because most of the times we have those that the opportunities are there, but they're not really ready to kind of like make use of those opportunities and take advantage of them. So no matter where you are, you just need to make sure that you're getting yourself ready. Do not just sit and relax. You get, so you need to make sure that you're positioning yourself for the opportunities that are going to come. So welcome back, Tim.
Yeah, so
Welcome back.
sorry to step out.
No, it's fine. It's okay. So I think before you left, you were answering the questions on how core devs
Right.
are
Yeah, yeah.
compensated.
Yeah. So they work for companies, but the one thing that EF does is we have this program called the Ethereum Protocol Fellowship. I saw the link was posted in the chat. So we generally run towards this every year. We ran one that started this summer. And one thing we noticed when we were running this is a lot of people felt like they weren't prepared enough, or like they wish they could like study for it because they want to come in and one, be selected, but if they're selected, also be good. And so we put together this wiki, epf.wiki, that covers basically all aspects of the protocol. So I think if you want to actually like both learn to be a core dev and you're not too sure, or if you're not sure you want to do this, right? Like, and you want to understand what it is and what type of stuff you would be working on and what that would mean, um, I would recommend going through this. And I know a lot of people who've done like local study groups about it too, right? Like there's a lot of stuff there. We run cohorts like live during the year at different times, but you don't need us, right? Like you can just go and be like, okay, this is like, I don't know if it's like 8 weeks or 10 weeks, I forget, but it's like you can have like a group with like some of your friends and be like, we're going to go through week one together and try to figure out like what we can. Um, a lot of the people as well who participated in this, like, if there's a video by like, I know there's one by Mario about testing, like these people are also very, very reachable. Like we have this public Discord for all of the Ethereum core development. So for example, if you're like watching the testing episode from Mario and you're like, I don't understand what this thing is, and you try to read it and you don't get it, like you can usually pay Mario, and some of the folks, I don't know, people like Justin Drake and Don Crowd and Vitalik are obviously super busy and they get a ton of messages, and it's unlikely they'll answer to you. They might, but like, it's unlikely. Um, Most of the like other core devs, like, they're happy to explain what they do, what they work, and they don't necessarily get that many random things. So that's one thing too. Like I would recommend is like obviously try to understand the stuff on your own, and but if you feel blocked, like you can just reach out to people, and you can just try to like understand yourself. Another thing I found really helpful, even for myself, is like to understand different parts of the protocol. It's just using like LLMs like ChatGPT or Grok or whatever. And even the free versions, like I'm often surprised, like if I have some weird question about the protocol and I'm like, I don't know how this weird edge case works. Can you like walk me through it? And kind of going through some of the details of the specs. So I think that's another really underrated way to learn. It's like, if you're like, okay, this is like this paragraph about the protocol, but like I don't understand this line. Like, what do they mean when they use this word in this context? I find LLMs are incredibly helpful for this. Um, and maybe the other part I would say is like if you do something like look at like the EPF program or whatnot, um, most people who come in the protocol today, they're not like experts at everything, right? Like they tend to find one area that they really enjoy or that they're good at, and then they kind of go deep on that. And I think that's probably the best way to do it because there's just so much, right? Like you're not going to be really good at everything on day one. But if you're able to say, like, okay, I care about testing, or I care about networking, or I care about scaling, like whatever it is, you can become like an expert at that. And then through that work, you're going to understand other parts of the protocol too, right? Like, because if you work on scaling, then at some point you're going to have to test what you do, and you're going to be like, oh, how does testing work? And then but you get to approach it where like you don't have to understand every single thing about testing before getting started, or vice versa. If you care about testing, it's like, okay, you can understand how the testing stack works, and you don't need to know about like every part of the protocol, but at some point, the testing stack will interact with it, and that's like a good way to think about it. So that would be my advice to you, is just like try to understand which parts you like, which parts like you're good at, or you think you can contribute to, and then just go deep there, and don't hesitate to like reach out to the people who are actually doing the work, because most of them are just like eager to find like talented contributors that they could work with. So yeah.
Yeah.
That's lovely. That's lovely. Thank you so much, Sim. Thank you. There's a question that's asking how EIP 7723 is required to be implemented within the protocol itself. I think it's very new EIP. Yeah.
7723. I think that so 7723 just describes how the process works. So we have some of these EIPs that are called like meta EIPs, and they're more just like descriptions of the process. So like yeah, so it just explains how we plan the upgrades. It's not like some code that people have to implement.
Okay. That's
So
great.
I actually want to start wrapping up now. Give you maybe a couple minutes of your time back to Tim, but I have some rapid fire questions meant to be answered really fast. Okay. Okay. So most underrated EIP right now, because there's about 900 of them,
Okay,
700.
I'll share my favorite one. I think it's
Okay.
7503. It's called Wormholes. It's about adding privacy to Ethereum layer one. It is 7503. So yeah, 7503.
Nice. That's what everyone's going to go research it right after this. If you could change one thing about working at Ethereum, like what, and you had like a magic wand, like what would that be?
Less different chat platforms. The amount of different platforms and places I need to keep up with messages is insane. If it all came through like a single pipeline, that'd be amazing.
Everybody should just use Matrix, Matrix only. Okay, what are some of the key areas that if you were a developer right now, you would be studying?
Depends. So if I was really smart, ZK for sure. Like, but it is hard. It's like I don't think I'm smart enough to actually do this. If I wasn't, like if I'm me, I would AI like to automate my work better with AI. This is like the thing, like how like just being really good at doing like basic or like medium developer stuff, but like using AI automation. Um, yeah, those would be the two.
And you just refer to yourself as not smart. Is that correct?
Not ZK Smart. Correct. Yeah, yeah. I
ZK.
do think like because there's these domains like I think cryptography especially is one of them. Just like you like I tried to do some ZK tutorials and look, I have a computer science degree. I'm not like I know how to write code and whatnot,
Yeah.
but I do think that there's at least for me, it was helpful to understand like what's like the barrier where I can be helpful. Like it's useless for me to just bash my brain against the wall and try to like understand how to actually implement like a ZK circuit from scratch. Like I, I and if maybe if I spent like a year doing just that, I could. But like if I spent a year trying to like automate what I do with I would get way more value. So I do think it depends on like your personal like abilities and interests. But if you are like very smart and like like ZK, I think is one of the areas where there's just like so much to do,
Yeah.
and we're really bottlenecked by just like human brain power and like people who and the amount of people who really understand it is like
Very.
maybe a couple hundreds in the world. So like you just have such a good opportunity to go and like get to the frontier in like a year and become one of these leading experts. Um, but it's also just like an unrealistic expectation that like I could not do that tomorrow. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why one of my uh, kind of idols in the space is Uma. Maybe you've seen
Yeah.
Uma.
Uma is very smart.
Uma is very
Uma,
smart.
yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, she's great. Yeah. Yeah. But like yeah, I mean if Uma will hire you, you should probably go and work for her and you'll learn a lot. Yeah.
I mean, I'm announcing it a little, maybe a little bit too early, but finally, she's agreed to come speak at the Frontier Tower for a crypto
Amazing.
summit that I'm organizing, and so
Amazing.
yes, I'm very excited to have her. Okay, last couple questions, and we'll let you go. If you had to say Ethereum's main goals, right? It's scale layer one, scale layer two, interoperability. What's missing part of this, apart from these three goals?
So I guess these three goals are good, and these are like what the EF put out recently. I think the thing that's maybe missing when we put it this way is like the assumption that we do all of this without compromising on what makes Ethereum special, like its robustness, its resilience, decentralization, and whatnot. So like I think this is maybe the thing that's worth emphasizing, where like when we say these three goals, it's like conditional on, you know, maintaining the properties of the network. But like if we do that, then yeah, that's great. If we get to keep Ethereum censorship resistance, keep it open, keep it like permissionless, but we get to scale it, we get to scale L2s, we get to improve interop, improve UX, that'd be excellent.
Yeah, amazing.
Mm.
And then last question is, what is one thing that the community misunderstands about core devs, if anything at all?
Um, I don't know, there's just one thing. I feel like it's like there's a lot that's misunderstood. Yeah. I feel like we spent the whole hour talking about. I don't have one straight one. Yeah.
No
Yeah.
one concrete one?
I
Even
guess maybe it's like maybe the biggest one's like it's not a real thing, right? Like, you know, like we talked about earlier, like um anyone can join the calls, right? Like the calls are open. People who like work as actual core developers, they don't work in this like broad bucket of core devs, but they work on, you know, a specific project and whatnot. So like core dev is just like this reductive umbrella term that we use that's helpful to talk about this like general group of people. But like there's no there's no like canonical core dev place or hub, um and we just call the calls, we've called the calls this way because it was like a good shorthand. But yeah, maybe that would be my one thing. It's like core dev as like a very specific thing is not like a real thing. It gets very fuzzy once you look into it.
Hmm. Vikesh has one last question, and then we're wrapping up.
Yes. So where do you see Ethereum in the next 5 years? Because there's a lot of upgrades that has gone into Ethereum recently. So where do you see it in the next 5 years?
I think a couple things. First of all, I think like it being actually used in a bunch of different places and contexts. Like I think we're only starting to get like quote real world adoption. And there's already a ton of usage on Ethereum, but a lot of it is very crypto specific. So I think we'll just see it like integrate with the world much better. At the protocol level, I guess I mentioned this before, but it's like leveraging ZK far more heavily for scale. And it's just really this like one thing that we I think can do that's differentiated and that gives us the ability to scale without compromising on like security guarantees. Um, and this is kind of why was my advice, I guess, earlier as well. Like if people want to be at like the bleeding edge of how the protocol will evolve, understanding exactly how ZK works and where it can be helpful in the stack and whatnot, like is a really good spot to be in.
Amazing, amazing. So we have a lot of homework to do. We have a lot of ZK to learn.
Yeah.
I will definitely share a lot more about the EPF fellowship. I think it's a
Yeah.
really amazing one. And yeah, I think 7503 was the one that you showed. So we're going to definitely look
Yes.
into that.
Yeah,
Thank
funny
you.
enough, this uses ZK proofs as well for privacy on L1. So if you want to understand ZK, like it might actually be a relatively simple starting point.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, Again, thank you so much, Tim. I know the fires that you have to put out on a daily basis are immense. So spending time with us is really appreciated, and I know the communities appreciate it too. I hope that you have a wonderful celebration of Ethereum's 10 years. We're all going to be celebrating on July 30th. So yeah, so looking forward to keeping up to date with you as well.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah.
Bye.
Bye.